You had this guy waiting at a bus stop. One moment he's there, the next he's gone, with him plummeting into a 12 to 15-foot hole. And as if that wasn't bad enough, it was full of rats. And not just your regular rats, we're talking New York rats. And then for the next half hour, he just lies there as rodents were crawling all over him. He's severely injured, barely moving, trying not to open his mouth for fear that they're going to crawl inside him. Now, of course, most sinkholes aren't as big or as deep as those, but when they are, people can get hurt. In fact, right outside the city, Long Island has seen an especially large number of them open up in recent months, sometimes spilling sewage and fecal matter into neighborhoods. And in one recent case, a Ring doorbell caught this 70-year-old woman falling into a hole in her front yard with 2 other men. So what do we do? Well, in terms of policies, we can mitigate the issue not only by maintaining our sidewalks better, but also by reinforcing our sewer systems and, most of all, fixing the climate crisis. With notably those first 2 things being easier than the last. But as we're seeing literally every one of these numbers going in the wrong direction, something has to be done. And I guess in the meantime, because people don't have enough irrational fears, just remember when you're walking down the street at any single moment, you might be seconds away from fending off an army of sinkhole rats. And then, y'all, are the United States and Mexico independently confirming the existence of extraterrestrials? No, you fucking donkeys. But some people with varying levels of success have been twisting recent headlines into the narrative. Right, starting with the US, NASA just released a 33-page report on UFOs, and in it, they found no evidence of aliens. So they still kept the door slightly open for some conspiracy theorists by agreeing that some UFO sightings still defy explanation. That being said, they also made it clear that they just need to invest more into better techniques to identify what's going on. Now, the big thing that any Ancient Aliens fan is going to latch onto is the fact that this report was made by a 16-person panel that didn't have access to any top secret files. Right, they only had declassified stuff, so they weren't allowed to look at the actual alien specimens we have hiding around. But you know who did check out some aliens? The Mexican Congress. Because on Tuesday, 2 experts stood before them and showed off 2 allegedly 1,000-year-old alien corpses. And they look like a stereotypical depiction of aliens, if not a little smaller. With the speaker, who is under oath, claiming that these are not mummies, these are complete bodies that have not been manipulated. They somehow even managed to get a forensic expert and military doctor to check out scans of these little guys and provide analysis. Things like they had big eyes or didn't have teeth. So they were probably from a post-chewing society that only had smoothies, kind of like parts of San Diego. But looking into this entire circus didn't just come out of nowhere. Right? Just like their American counterparts, Mexican pilots have seen unexplained things in the sky and struggled to make sense of it. So Congress was looking into it. A few people actually believe that these 2 little specimens were seriously alien. Which, I mean, just to clear up any confusion, I personally do believe that aliens exist. Everything in existence is too grand and infinite for us to be the only ones. But that does not translate to anything we have no answers for when we see UFOs is an alien. That does not translate into I definitely believe that we've been visited. And if you think those things, when I say donkey, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about people that looked at what is very obviously a fraud and they were like, boom, that's the proof. Or the people that were ignorant enough or clout chasey enough to try to just muddy up the narrative and say this was the Mexican government confirming. Which, by the way, X, Twitter, whatever the fuck you want to call it, it's become such a shit show. It feels like ever since they turned on monetization, you have people just like putting out obviously fake bullshit just for engagement. And then a group of landlords just threw a party to celebrate the fact that they are now able to legally evict people from their homes again. And super shockingly, it did not end well. With this whole situation going down in Berkeley, California, where the Berkeley Property Owners Association, BPOA, hosted a party at a local bar to celebrate the end of the city's eviction moratorium. Because like many other cities, Berkeley implemented a ban on most evictions back in March of 2020, with that ban officially ending on August 31st. And so, you know, with that, the landlords have complained that they were being hurt by the ban, that the tenants had taken advantage of them. And the president of the BPOA defending the party and saying to reporters, "We make no qualms about celebrating the end of the eviction moratorium. We are celebrating the end of the tenants who could have paid rent and chose not to." But many others have hit back against that, including the chair of Berkeley's Rent Stabilization Board, with them saying that the allegation that many tenants could have paid rent but just chose not to was nonsense. With that, noting that the BPOA has provided zero proof of fraud. And obviously, the second this event was announced online, it got a ton of backlash from advocates and activists in the city, with the local outlet Berkeley Side reporting that a group of roughly 100 advocates from the tenant and neighborhood councils, Berkeley Tenants Union, and other groups gathered outside the pub to picket the event, which despite the public reaction was attended by about 24 landlords. And according to Berkeley Side, the picketers yelled chants and shouted "parasite" and "get a job" at the landlords who entered the building. But then about an hour into the demonstration, the protesters streaming into the venue and they started circling around the patio of the pub. And they continued to picket for about a minute and a half more, and then all hell broke loose. Multiple fights started between the two groups. Witnesses saying they saw a man from the landlords group slap a female member of a tenants group in the face and push her. Berkeley Side also saying there was a video of one demonstrator knocking eyeglasses off the head of someone who appeared to be with the landlords, prompting another party goer to seemingly swing a punch at the protester. The BPOA president telling reporters she didn't see who started the fight and adding that she went outside to ask police who had been observing the protest for help, but they refused refused to enter the pub. But with that, the situation seemingly resolved itself quickly, with protesters reportedly leaving the bar just minutes after the fights broke out. And in the aftermath, both sides appear to blame the other for the violence, with the Berkeley Tenants Union posting a series of tweets accusing the landlords of assaulting protesters, while the BPOA issued a statement to the local media saying, "We condemn the actions of hostile dissidents who disrupted a private gathering at a local restaurant to intimidate, harass, and physically assault our members who are law-abiding small business owners." But yeah, that is where we are, and I gotta ask you, where do you land on this issue? Because there have been a lot of different reactions, those looking at the landlords going, I mean, like, what did you expect? You're throwing a yay, we can kick people out of their homes party. But then you have some saying, landlords feel like they've been taken advantage of, or the people that are taking one of the biggest losses during the pandemic, and others saying, hey, that's bullshit. So I'd love to know your thoughts and feelings here. And then, being as clear and concise when communicating is a must. And thanks to the sponsor of today's show, Grammarly, an AI-powered writing tool, it is making all our lives easier. Grammarly provides personalized AI communication assistance that accelerates and helps unlock creativity and helps you communicate clearly and concisely, offering suggestions that, surprisingly, you may prefer. Or maybe you're stuck on where to start. Grammarly can help you get started with initial ideas, outlines, or even tips. It's great help with marketing. I mean, for my new coffee, for example, I could just type in, give me 10 possible ideas for describing the best coffee, and boom, clever ideas for describing our new must-have coffee, which I do think is the best. And when you're done writing and you need that polish or it's running on too long, Grammarly's rewrite function is so awesome. You can ask Grammarly to rewrite it to be short or more engaging, whatever, which is also so important when reporting news. But one of my go-tos is Grammarly's reply feature. And this is for all of us with mountainous inboxes. It helps you summarize your emails, providing suggestions on how to reply in seconds. And I'm telling you, you will be amazed at what you can do with Grammarly, because all of these features I mentioned are free to use. You get 100 free prompts per month. So just go to Grammarly.com/PhilDeFranco09 and get 20% off Grammarly Premium. And then, it is incredibly rare to see a software company end up as hated as this. But the game engine maker Unity has managed to blow up years and years of goodwill with game developers after introducing a radical price change. And if you don't care about gaming, don't worry, because this could go way beyond gaming, because it can give us an idea of where software companies want pricing structures to go. And so with that, the obvious question is, well, what exactly is the change? Well, currently, Unity has a variety of plans ranging from personal to enterprise, and they offer slightly different things, with many small and indie game developers just getting started opting for one of the lower plans that are free or nearly free, with that being an absolutely huge draw for Unity, where it's pretty much like, yeah, use our software and make cool shit. Then, if you ever get to a point where you're actually making money, then we'll work out a deal. But starting in 2024, that all changes, with the company now moving to a pay-per-download model, where developers on the cheapest plans will need to pay 20 cents per install, while those on the expensive plans have variable rates that get lower and lower. And this news caused a massive backlash among developers and their fans, especially because in the gaming world, there's this big emphasis on supporting indie devs and their underdog stories. But many of them, alongside smaller studios, pointed out that these changes would be catastrophic. Right? For many indie games that become popular, the fees could get into the millions of dollars. And that's a ridiculous amount of money, especially when you consider that some of these games are free to play. Right? So in this new world, they'll have to pay upfront for users that may never actually end up turning them a profit through other monetization methods like in-game shops. Also, another big question was, what happens if a user buys a game once, like on Steam, but installs it on their PC, their laptop, and Steam Deck? Or the fact that there was a lot of vagueness about the entire change concerned so many people. Now with this, it appears that some of the confusion could have been solved if people read any of the updates Unity put out about the change. For example, there are a series of thresholds that need to be crossed before anyone's charged anything. So for those on the lower plans, a game would need to have both made $200,000 within the last 12 months and get 200,000 lifetime installs before they start paying. Whereas the pro plans have the same idea, but at 1 million each, and some subsequent updates have offered some insight. Right? One of the big questions was whether things like demos would count towards the download limit, and with that, apparently they, alongside charity packages, will not, or how downloads will be tracked. For that, they apparently didn't want to give away the exact secret as it was proprietary, but they did say that they have protections in place for fraudulent downloads, which is probably important because critics of the change like Asmongold pointed out a few interesting situations that are surely to happen, right? Like what would happen if you played a small game and didn't like it, and then a small but stupid percentage of fans decided, hey, I'm going to download the game in order to get it past a certain threshold to hurt the developer. Does that developer just get fucked? Also, another question posed by creators like Day9 was, why was this change a better option than revenue sharing? Right? Because with revenue sharing, the objectives of both Unity and the developer are aligned. As the developers make more, so does Unity. But for its part, Unity said in an FAQ that they thought this was better for developers because it didn't slow down future profits like profit sharing would. But the main and biggest thing here is that because of all this, we've seen a slew of developers just saying, hey, we're out. With, for example, the makers of Cult of Lamb, which, by the way, is a fantastic game, tweeting out, buy Cult of Lamb now because we're deleting it on January 1st. While the threatening to delete the game was a joke, the general anger towards this change wasn't, with them posting, for those who don't know, Cult of the Lamb is made in Unity. Our team specializes in Unity games. So what's the impact on us? Well, we have future projects in the pipeline that were initially planned to be developed in Unity. This change would result in significant delays since our team would need to acquire an entirely new skill set. The introduction of these fees by Unity could pose significant challenges for aspiring developers, while others said that the changes would be untenable, or simply put, Unity can get fucked. And you also had a number of people arguing the company knew that this was a shit idea, with people pointing to things like its CEO selling off stock days before the changes were announced, and unsurprisingly, that was a good idea as the price tanked afterwards. But with all that said, I'd love to know your your thoughts on this, whether it be generally or like you're someone that's super into this gaming space? Or do you think people are overreacting or they're justifiably pissed with everything how it's been described? Do you think it's a reasonable way to charge people that are using their platform for free to occasionally make hit games? Any and all thoughts you have on this, I'd love to hear. And then the problems for Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis just keep on growing. Though this time, I will say it has nothing to do with those character letters they wrote for Danny Masterson. And actually, instead, of all things, it's about an NFT cartoon show they worked on. And that show was called Stoner Cats. It was reportedly funded